We're a Kiwi couple living in Australia who brought a 57-foot steel trawler after she sunk in a flood and was pulled from the sea. We're now bringing her back to life. We're on to the finishing jobs after working on her for the last 6 years to refit and get her ready for launch as soon as possible. Brupeg is rebuilt by us with volunteers funded by Patreons and viewers, and we spend every cent we have to make sure that she's ready. She's fueled by veggie oil, diesel, solar and wind power to do research, projects and expeditions to remote places like Antarctica and the Northwest Passage. She'll be crewed by supporters from around the world. Welcome aboard.
Tony's here to help us today.
Hey Jess.
A little bit of housework first up. We've got to get the mattress downstairs into the bottom cabin and tidy up. So that is why the sofa is on the table at the moment. After that, the guys are working on getting the cabin sanded, ready for painting before the rain.
This steel cabin is something that Jess and I built years ago when we first got the boat. It's already been sandblasted and then we've painted it from steel up, from blasted steel up, so we know exactly what is under all of this paint and what layers go down and so on. We know that we don't need to sand right down to bare steel, we just need to basically scuff the surface up and get it smooth and also get it keyed so that we can get a good coating of paint over top and it'll hold into the paint that's already there. So what we're doing here is sanding with a 120 grit, and in this case I'm ripping off tape that we couldn't get off any other way, but mostly we're going over this with ceramic discs so that we get a really nice surface to paint on top of.
If I wanted to be annoying, I could just say, GoPro, stop recording. My voice is too soft.
There's a special way you got to do it. You gotta talk
nothing better than seeing Dame have an argument with her.
You got to talk to it like you mean it. GoPro, stop recording.
Oh.
It's just the way you just got to. Just depends on how you want it.
It's got a favourite.
It's like talking to an old friend.
That's what I'm hearing.
It's like talking to an old friend. After you've sworn at it enough times, there's so much footage of me going, GoPro, stop recording.
Oh, that's incredible. So you got right up to the end.
What my question is when do we do certain things, right? I can blast from tomorrow onwards. I could spray tonight, the next 6 days, and it's, Monday's 52.
How's it gone up?
10 mil, 18, 23, 52.
Oh, Monday's gone up, isn't it?
And chance of a thunderstorm.
Carpet the whole front deck.
I mean, a false grass.
False grass. with a flag and a chipping green.
Yeah. Go the whole golf thing.
Yeah.
You know how some people hit golf balls off the top of a building or something?
Yeah.
You got to do it up.
Yeah, that's true.
We're not allowed a potato gun while we're in Australia,
Yeah,
so we're not going to do something.
Aggressive golfing.
Apparently, we're not legally allowed to use a potato gun. Build and use a potato gun off the front.
I wanted to say nanny state.
I wanted to make a semi-automatic potato gun, like using the air compressor off the main engine, and I'll feed it like ear loading. I'll feed it with some sort of ear loader.
This was actually to hit Renko.
Yeah, it was to try and shoot Renko.
The guys have been planning a little bit of a war play out, weren't you?
Yeah.
Now Renko's too far away.
I thought it'd be fucking hilarious making it look like a World War II anti-aircraft gun. You know, the two bloody barrels and all that sort of stuff. And I thought it'd just be hilarious. Sit up the front of the seat and you're aiming it with a big shielder and you're pelting the water around his boat. Other than try and stop myself from stealing her kitchen stuff, I've decided I'm just going to keep buying more kitchen stuff and just keep loading it in. So that
replacing the stolen goods.
As it leaks back out into the boat.
Oh, thank you. And the welding up.
Oh no, we've got to.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
To do the windows.
that fan was the first time Stu came up, and I just stuck all these windows on, and then we all sat in the lounge one night and just
Everyone's
absolutely sweated our balls off. It was just insanely hot. We didn't have the insul on the roof, but even at night time, it was, I don't know, 8 o'clock at night, we were just sweating our ring out.
Stu in his quiet way said, have you thought about opening that up?
Yeah, and the following day we had the bunny.
What about a fan?
Jigsawed a hole in it and put a fan on, yeah.
Stu, the only one with a brain left after
Yeah.
everyone else sweated their brain out of their nostrils.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to make you up a couple of lures for your trip.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
We have to learn how to fish.
Everyone else knows how to fish.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
We're like the worst boat people.
We are.
ever. Time to start blasting the hull, so we're getting the scaffold set up so that we can get to the actual hull itself. We're quite high when we do this, and we have to work our way higher as we go to the bow. The back end of the boat's pretty easy, but the front's the challenge because you can see the flare on the bow. You're basically working over your head and sort of out behind yourself, so it's always difficult. This is the tallest A-frames that the marina has, and you can see it's still, you know, there's a good metre, at least maybe 1.5 metres between the top of the A-frame and the bow itself. So it's always a bit of a challenge, but we need to get up there so that we can get into the likes of that. So see where that little mark is there, that's paint that's burnt off when we pad welded. Another one in the hull just there. We've got the likes of these guys that we welded in the other day, and then anywhere where there's bare steel like this where we've welded previously, we need to get in and blast. Low down, it's easy, we can stay on the ground when we're doing this sort of stuff, or the panels underneath, but we definitely need to get up when we're blasting like sponsons and things, or wings, or anything sort of, yeah, up more than 1 metre or 2. Panel's done. We've done most of the wings. There's a couple of bits I've missed. You can sort of see in this edge. I haven't got enough there, and then a couple of little minor bits up in the stainless here that I need to get to. Maybe under there as well. But most of that's done. We need to drop the wing so I can get to the top of it now. But one thing I have found is if you look up there, I've blasted a hole in the side of the boat. I know where that is. It's a tank that goes on the side deck. It's not an important tank in saying that. I still need to fix that hole, but I also know why it's done that. I mean, that's rust that's been there for a long time, but it's been basically open for the last 7 years, so we've done essentially nothing to stop that from rusting from the inside out. So I need to cut a patch and put that in. I need to get that done before we paint. We've got 5 days of basically rain happening, so we can't do any painting anyway. We're going to get all of our blasting done. I'll no doubt probably put a few more holes in the boat at some point when I'm walking around with the sandblaster. So next step is basically blast everything, knock any holes that are going to turn up out, cut them out, and then weld some new patches in. On the side deck, got the wing just there. This is where that tank is. So you can see that hole just down in the corner. That's where fresh oxygen's getting in. This tank basically essentially seals off between the cabin here and the side of the boat here. And it goes to about there, somewhere in the bulkhead, roughly there, which is from there forward is the galley, and the tank it's just an air tank. There's nothing in it whatsoever apart from air, and originally it used to come back to about here somewhere, and I hacked into it and chopped it up, made a set of stairs so that it could actually get up and down here, because it used to just be one big long stair to one big long step to get up there, and it never used to have a roof up here. When we put the roof in, you'd smash your head on it. So I chopped everything forward, moved it forward about 2 foot, cut into it, made the stairs, etc. But I never bloody finished that hole, and that's what's caused the, well, that's part of what's caused the problem. That rust has been there for a long time, but me not finishing that job has caused that hole to get much worse.
Your door. I know one thing for sure, I've never been so close before. It's one way or the other, no way in between.
While I've been blasting, Tony's been putting window coverings on to tape everything up. All of this sort of stuff here, covering all of the glass. It's getting pretty dark inside because there's no light anymore. Those windows have been hidden and we need to deal with the doors. What we're going to do is actually take the doors out so we can spray the inside of the door rim. We'll tape it up on the inside. On this side over here we've got the pentagraph hinge aluminium sea door, and the plan is to actually unbolt this off the hinge and just get rid of the door altogether so that we can tape it on the inside, and same deal, so we can spray from the outside and get that door rim.
I don't think we should do that just yet because I think we're out of time, because I was thinking we were painting by now, so I think you're going to have to paint at the other end of the day.
Okay.
So don't take the door off, just do it later.
Okay.
Just one thing to discover. Oh no, it was never built to last. Ooh, you just fall in and out of love. You just fall in and out of love. You just fall in and out of love. Oh, you just fall.
This is the type of thing that we're fixing with the sandblaster. So that patch you can see on the hull there is where we pad welded a piece of hull. We blew through the hull and welded it up, so there's a bit of a bulbous, rubbishy bit of weld on the outside. It's been ground down flat. Now we just need to give it a profile so paint will hold on. And then also, see this sort of line of rust? Just splatters of rust. Going around and just blasting the tops of that so that we can get some rust kill and some etch primer onto that. Make sure it holds tight. Same deal on the rudder. Rudder's been fully sandblasted. But we definitely need to clean up that rust there. It's been too long since it was painted. We have to give it a profile.
Little by little, piece by piece, I take back what's been stolen from me. Little by little, piece by piece, until I'm complete. I got my eyes on you, and you got no clue what I'm supposed to do. I can't help myself.
inside a masked up boat. So we've basically gone around, every window is covered up. The door is off now and that's all taped up. It's clear plastic that you're looking through there. In the wheelhouse up here, windows sealed off as well. I'll show you what that all looks like on the outside. This is what Tony was working on last thing yesterday. But windows covered up, stainless exhaust covered up, electric boxes covered up. Around the corner here, windows are done. The door down the end there is basically got plastic wrap on it so that we can spray the inside frame. Stainless that we don't want paint on is covered up, but we're also going to be doing blasting around there, so that's almost irrelevant. And then down this side, looks very similar. Basically windows covered up, this door covered up. You can sort of see where we've allowed ourselves access to the frame, so we can paint all the way around the frame as well. Ready to start putting some paint on. This is our aluminium sea door. It's been sanded, ready to go. It's going to be the first thing, but it's also going to be my test because it's the first time I've used this gun. This is a pressure pot and air spray gun setup. So the paint goes in that 10 litre pot at the bottom, and then you've got a gun that controls air and paint mixture coming out. This is going to be loud. The compressor down the end is rattling away. Yeah, first off, I'm going to teach myself how to spray paint using this particular gun, and then we're going to start spraying the cabin. We do have another gun. Let me take you for a walk down the end here. This one down here was donated by Owen Bell, and that's going to be used to put our antifoul on. In order to keep the air dry, I've got my big compressor down the end here, and I've got a leak happening at the bottom of it on purpose to let out any compressed water that goes down there. Then this yellow line that snakes its way around the bottom of the yard, it's about 100 feet long, and it goes to this red tank. It's an accumulator, old compressor tank that I've turned into an accumulator. What that does is basically catches any water coming down that line, and by that stage it's run out of most of its energy. It falls down into the bottom of that tank, and then you end up with essentially no water coming through your system. So that blue line coming off, there's a couple of blue lines. One of them is going up onto the deck ready to go, and the other is snaking around here to our pressure pot. And by the time the air gets to this pressure pot, it's basically completely dry. Saves the need to use any dissectants or anything like that, and it's just a real cheap and easy way of getting an air dryer. Pack etch primer that we're using has a bit of a weird mixing ratio of 3.5 to 1. The beauty with 2-pack is that once you've mixed it, it's going to go off, and this allows you to put a second coat on within a relatively short amount of time. So this is about 20 minutes later, putting a second coat over top of the first so they chemically bond together. I was working my way down the side and had a wee bit of an accident. Hose blew off. Spat about a litre of paint across the deck and a little bit of cabin and side deck and so on. So I think I probably would have got that side finished had it not been for that paint that spewed out the side. It was a Jubilee clip that gave way, and just with the lubrication, with the painter's lubrication, it just flew off. So anyway, this is the after effect on the bottle itself. A wee bit of goo spread around. It's spread evenly, so it's a good quality coat.
Little by little, piece by piece, I take back what's been stolen from me. Little by little, piece by piece, until I'm complete.
Dame has just dedicated himself during this time to this work. He's just a machine, just unbelievable. I know Dame is a really hard worker and we both believe in hard work, but the last few days have been extraordinary. Everything we've done and all the support you guys have given us has led us to this day, this moment where he can actually get the boat prepped for a launch. It's amazing. Thanks guys.
Was not yours. If you know who I am, when the night will fall, I'll haunt your dreams.
We have a lot of people telling us we're doing things wrong, and people who don't know what they're talking about, and some people who are very experienced but don't understand all the variables and issues that we have to deal with and fight to get through to make this work. But we appreciate all the comments. The interesting thing that's happened recently is someone actually said to Dame that he wasn't doing a good enough job, he wasn't doing it fast enough, and I've never seen Dame actually take offence, but he did this time. So that was really interesting to see his limit.
I have a blockage. I can't get any sand out, so I have to pull the valve at the bottom apart to unblock whatever is blocking it up. Here's something I didn't expect. That's quite heavy when it's laying down. I'm not used to that.
Here's a few of the things that Dame has to deal with in the background. Looking after a sick wife, getting her to hospital when needed, caring for family, working a full-time job in 3 days to pay for most of this project, sore backs, injuries and exhaustion, not having enough money, cooking, cleaning, keeping the car running, being a husband and friend, being a friend to new mates, being a friend to old mates, doing the right thing with COVID, running a YouTube channel, staying well, exercising, admin and legal responsibilities, managing his own health issues, building a boat capable of going to Antarctica, editing, filming, managing stress and judgmental people, and just being a decent bloke.
Minion is a multi-purpose sand squirter. if you stand back a wee bit and you just aim it, sort of wave it around like this, you end up sanding rather than blasting down to bare steel. And then there's little squares and patches that do need to go down to steel. You just move a bit closer and get it down to the profile you want. But by doing this, one person can sand an entire underside of a trawler in a day or two, as opposed to having to do it with like orbital sanders or, you know, grinders, that sort of thing. And you end up with a really beautiful profile. It's basically a sandblasted profile on top of the paint, so it's going to, you know, hold the paint layers that go above it.
The rain's starting to come in, so I protected the sand, which is, you know, pretty critical to stay dry.
This is how much water the water trap pulls out of the airline in the humid conditions that we're trying to work in. It's just incredible. We probably get 5 litres of water out of this thing every day.
Rain's in, probably going to be here for about 5 or 6, 7 days maybe, something like that. That's what it looks like anyway. But I reckon that'll do for today. Got this plate done. I was mainly wanting to get the anodes done and the bare steel. So the anodes are all blasted, which is, I'm happy with that. The bare steel's done. The doubler up here is all done. Any patches that I found along the way, blasted those. You can sort of see when they turn up, I just go through and give them a bit of a razz up. There was a patch down in there, it's a bit hard to see, but there's a patch down there that we did in the freezer room yonks ago. Gave that a blast. All of that red is underneath the silver paint. The silver is a tie coat, the red is an antifoul. That was what originally Brupeg had, red antifoul, so that's why you can see when I go through a bit far I go into that red. Anywhere where there was any nicks and chips, I've gone and done that, basically blasted right down to steel, so we'll start again. Sort of same along that keel there, you can sort of see there's a few chips and nicks and stuff that I've blasted right down to. A few more bits and bobs where took it down to steel up this end. This is the patch. This patch here is a oil storage tank, and that patch there is a water tank. We opened them up so that we can sandblast them. Did that years ago. This is some pad welding that we did, as well as that patch up there that was some pad welding. And then that white paint on the hull, that's a 2-pack epoxy paint that's underneath the grey, so I'm ripping down to that white, and then I'm going to put another layer of couple of layers of high build epoxy on top of that, and then a couple of layers of top coat. So tomorrow's job is basically rip the grey paint right the way along the length of the boat. I'm pretty pleased with the blaster, it's going really well. I had one issue where I had to rebuild the bottom end of it. I must have got a bit of grit or something in, like something, you know, went through the sieve that was obviously a bit big. But apart from that, it's been running faultlessly all well, the last 3 days. I get about 80 litres of sand from like completely full to completely empty, which I don't actually know how long it equates for in time. It's probably about 40 minutes, 45 minutes or something of blast time, which is kind of a comfortable number. 2 tanks, and it's you want to go and have a bit of a break, have a coffee sort of thing. So yeah, I'm really happy with Minion. It's worked out as a great modification. I'm also happy with how well it's blasting. Like it's bringing up the paint really nice. Like everywhere we've blasted has basically got a profile now that we could put epoxy straight on and it will hold. It's not like where you mechanically sand, you end up polishing steel if you start sanding it. When you sandblast, you end up basically roughing it up, and it goes a bit like a beach, essentially, like really rough and sort of coarse, and nothing's uniform. Perfect for paint, you know, it holds on really well. So that's why we want to blast everything. And finally, blasting the hull, like blasting that grey off the actual hull itself. I knew that grey would come off pretty easy because it's a crap paint. It's a Hempel paint that just never set properly. We were never happy with it. So we were always planning to take it off, and we knew that there was good paint under it, you know, good what was it? I think it was a wattle epoxy that we put on 5-7 years ago, something like that. So we knew that was under it, we knew that it was good quality, and we knew that because we had this crap paint on top, that paint was basically protected from anything. So yeah, we're pretty happy with how it's going so far. People often ask about our wet blasting and painting process. Once we've got our steel down to this profile here, it's basically roughed up with the sand, but it has surface rust on it. We actually want the surface rust, so you can sort of see I've let the steel go that orange surface rust colour. Every panel that we've blasted I've left for a day or two and allowed it to basically rust off. There's a reason we need that rust. Traditional dry blasting basically goes and roughs the surface up, but it doesn't make the surface rust. It doesn't allow any rust to happen on the surface, and that's fine. You can put your 2-pack primers or whatever you're using directly on that steel, and that's the industry accepted norm. Most yards these days are getting more and more pressure on them from like environmental regulations about the dust and things that comes from dry blasting. You've either got to be in a completely enclosed area, there's got to be ventilation, that sort of stuff. Like, it's starting to get harder and harder to do dry blasting, and wet blasting is starting to become more of the norm. It's not necessarily preferred. A lot of people still prefer the dry blasting, and dry blasting is fantastic. Like, don't get me wrong, I actually really love dry blasting. We don't do it because I don't have a compressor big enough, and it's you know, you're really getting into the industrial stuff when you've got proper dry blasting at that sort of volume, and that's not something that we can afford. And also, we couldn't do dry blasting for the last 6 years in the yard. We had to do wet blasting because it's as dusty as basically using a water blaster. So we had to come up with a way of figuring out how do we make wet blasting work. And the beauty of it is wet blasting is it allows you to blast inside tanks or inside the boat and so on, and not get crap everywhere, because dry blasting just puts sand everywhere. You know, you blast one corner of the boat and 2 years later you're still pulling it out from the other end of the boat. The trick with wet blasting is make sure you've got all your mill scale off. So you want a nice uniform orange colour. You want that rust to start. You don't want it to be just bare straight steel. And sometimes when it is bare straight steel, we spray a bit of water on it to make it rust over the next day or so. Because the next process is putting this stuff here on. This is just a generic rust converter. Basically it's phosphoric acid, so it doesn't really matter what brand you get as long as it's got a really high phosphoric acid content. Steel always tries to get back to its most stable state, which is iron oxide, and that's exactly what rust is. Rust is iron oxide. To deal with the rust on a boat, we use that phosphoric acid because it chemically converts it from iron oxide into iron phosphate, and it's a much more stable chemical at that point. By putting the rust converter onto the iron oxide or the rust, it actually physically bonds into the metal and you end up with a really hard coat. It's easy to get it wrong, and it's very specific to get it right. And over the last 7 years, we've kind of, through trial and error, we've basically learned how to do it right. This stuff is an acid, but it's pretty mild. It's like, sort of think of it like vinegar. It's not a dramatic acid. Easiest way that it's water soluble, so if you ever need to clean any of it up, you can just basically wash it up with water. The easiest way we've found to apply this stuff is just getting a spray bottle like this. The secret to getting rust converter to work: put plenty on, don't be too worried about that. Go from a few different angles so you make sure you get all of it. And then just let it basically dry off. After 24 hours that goes relatively sort of set, hard almost. Then we actually spray a second coat on it. Putting the 2 coats on means that you basically get any pieces of steel that you've missed in the first coat. You will miss some in that first coat. Once you've got the second coat on, I normally give them 24 hours to dry between them, so I do give them a bit of time to actually dry. It probably doesn't take that long, but I just like to make it, you know, go off a lot. Once I've got that second coat on and it's dry, then I go over with a wire brush and basically scuff it up. Now, I don't want to use a wire brush on a grinder because it's too aggressive. It'll rip everything off. I normally use a hand brush, give the whole thing a scuff up, because you'll get like a crystal structure on the top, a white crystal structure, and paint won't stick to that. Once you've scuffed all of that top surface rubbish off though, the paint sticks to it really well because it's still soft enough for the paint to bond in chemically, but at the same time the phosphoric acid has bonded into the rust. So you get a really good bond between the paint, the rust converter and the steel itself. You can kind of see you don't have to be too precious with this. And it's cheap enough not to bother trying to skimp. You can see here I've gone over stainless and mild steel. It can go over both. It works as a really good cleaner for stainless, and it works as a good rust converter for mild steel. I give that half an hour to kind of go like tacky. It's starting to rain, so perfect time to start sandblasting. I can't do much else. But in the background, I've been getting Stu and Adrian's rooms ready. They've got a room each. I don't want them to, you know, not feel like this is their home or anything, so I've been trying to make it as comfy as we can.
It's been a mountain of work getting Brupeg to this stage over the last few years. We've been building the boat since 2014 and we're nearly in the water. It's something we're incredibly grateful is the amount of support that we've had over the years, whether it's locals, our Patreons from around the world, people that have donated, our viewers, people that have offered their time or expertise. It's just been an unending list of supporters and it's something that we're incredibly grateful for.
If you'd like to join us on Patreon, check out the link in the video description below.
When the blaster sits with pressure in it, but you're not letting the sand out for a while, you end up with this really crappy spray that I'm getting right here. Basically, I've got way too much sand coming out and not enough air pressure. And then in a second, right now, you can sort of see the air and the sand sort themselves out and you get a really beautiful, even amount of sand and air coming out. You're actually better off to have slightly less sand and slightly more air pressure when you're sandblasting. You get a smoother sand. Just ran out of sand. Time to open a new can. I thought I did such a good job, I gave myself a round of applause.